Good morning and praise Jesus. I invite you for our Wisdom Advantage session. And today we shall be looking at the concept of seed time and harvest. Actually, life in general can be summarized as a process of seed time or a process of harvest. You are either on seed time, either on harvest. You are either planting seeds or you are either doing the harvest. Now, I want us to read Genesis chapter 1, verse 11. It talks about, and God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plant yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind, on the earth." And it was so. Now this is the account of Genesis, when God was doing the creation. And when God was doing the creation, the wisdom that God deployed when it came to how reproduction could take place, He placed the concept of seed time and harvest. Now in Genesis chapter 8 verse 22, the Bible talks about, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, dry and night shall not cease. So that means we cannot run away from the concept of seed time and harvest. Now I want us to look at 6 aspects or 6 elements that they connote seeds, and how we need to engage these seeds so that now we can enjoy the harvest that comes with these seeds. Now, words are seeds. In the story of the parable of the sower, Matthew chapter 13, Jesus gave a parable that a farmer went to sow seeds. And on the interpretation, that seed has been described as the word of God. This is to make us to appreciate the fact that any word that comes from you, Proverbs talks about life and death is in the power of our tongue. So the words that come from you, they are seeds and they have a harvest. Now it is you now to determine what kind of harvest do you want to get from those words. If you are expecting life, you cannot be speaking death. If you are expecting seeds of life, you cannot be speaking negative word. And that is why, as children of God, or people who have an understanding of the power of words, what we speak about ourselves, what we speak about our children, even what we speak about other people, we should measure. Why? Because we know they carry a harvest. It can carry a harvest of conflict. It can carry a harvest of division. If it is to your children, you can curse them, you can destroy them. And so don't underestimate the seed of your words. Your words are seeds and they carry life. And the devil knows that. That's why people in our modern days, people speak a lot of cursing words, thinking that they are making fun, thinking that it's something trendy. But that is ignorance of the highest order. Those words, they have a consequence. It can either be a good consequence or a bad consequence. Now, actions are also seeds. In Mark chapter 5, when Jesus was speaking about the Beatitudes, one of the Beatitudes Jesus said is, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy." Meaning, Christ was saying, if your actions are kind, you are always merciful and forbearance to other people, that is what you shall receive from God. And even that is what you shall receive from other people. And so don't expect your actions to be of death and you're expecting harvest of life. Don't expect the actions that you are making in light of your life and other people. It is always negative. And then you're expecting good from other people. Ephesians 6 from 8 to 10 talks about, whatever you make it happen for others, also God will make it happen for you. And so anytime you are acting, ask yourself, this seed that I'm planting, what shall I harvest? Because those actions, they carry seeds, they carry harvest. It can be either you are planting something, or it can be either you are doing your harvest. Now, intercession is also seeds. Ezekiel 22:30 is a familiar scripture. Ezekiel talks about when God is speaking and saying, "I looked for a man who could stand in the gap and put an edge so that now I don't bring destruction, but I found none." And so when you intercede, you are sowing seed and there's a harvest. When you intercede, it means, say for example, you're interceding for other people or for yourself, you're expecting a harvest in return. As you intercede for other people, if you are passionate interceding about those who are sick, those who are lost, those who are confused, there's a harvest even in reward for you. That's why Jesus told us in Mark chapter 6 that when you pray, you do so in secret, because God who sees that whatever you're doing in secret, God shall reward you publicly. And so the moment you're interceding, just be conscious that you are sowing seeds. And so elevate your intercession to the kind of harvest you're expecting. Don't limit your intercession. You cannot be interceding for other people for God to preserve them and then you are destroyed. You cannot be passionate interceding for other people for God to heal them and then you yourself you're always sick. The more you intercede for other people, the same harvest also God will credit to your account. Now, giving is also seeds. Most of the time we talk about seed time and harvest, we always limit it to giving. That's not the only thing the word has made us to understand as seed. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 6 and 7, talks about if you sow sparingly, thou shalt reap sparingly. And if you sow generously, you shall reap generously. That context was on giving. And therefore, the more you give, just know the same, God will make it happen for you. Because God is the one who does the rewarding. In the context of seed and harvest, the best you can do if you're a farmer is to plant the seed, but you cannot cause it to grow. When it comes to growth and harvest, that one, the hand of God has to be involved. And so when you're doing the giving, you are doing so consciously because you are sowing seeds, because also you're expecting to receive from people, you're expecting to grow in your career. And so the moment you refresh others, as Proverbs tells us, God shall refresh you. And so how you give to other people, it connotes the kind of seed you're sowing to other people. And that is why even in our society, people who are generous, most of the time they always have abundance. And people who are stingy, most of the time they always have scarcity. And so let us maximize on the seeds of giving. Now, knowledge is also seed. We are meant to understand in Hosea chapter 6 verse 4, when God speaks to his people and he says, they are perishing because they lack knowledge. So meaning, ignorance is a seed that causes destruction. In other words, that verse, if you can paraphrase, you can say, my people are being destroyed because of their ignorance. Ignorance brings destruction. Knowledge brings preservation and empowerment. And that is why even in our daily life, we go to school. Why? To be empowered, to refine our skills so that now we can be people of value. The more knowledgeable you are, the more of value you become. And so knowledge is a type of seed that has a harvest. It's upon us now to invest in the right knowledge in light of your skill set, in light of your general information about life, and any kind of knowledge that shall grant you the harvest that you so desire. The more you are ignorant, the more the devil will have control over you. And the more you are informed, the more you'll have victory over the scheme of darkness, and the more you'll have, and the more you'll be a person of value. Now, choices are also seeds. Every choice has a consequence. That is the mystery of it. There is no choice that has no consequence. It can either be a good consequence or a bad consequence. In Joshua 24 verse 15, when Joshua was telling the people of God, and he gave them an option, choose whom you shall serve. They had to make that choice. But he told them, as for me, the choice I'm making, and with my family, we shall serve God. So if you choose to serve other God, that's okay. God will deal with you. But if I choose to serve God, that's okay with me. God shall deal with me. And so anytime you're making a critical choice, whether someone whom you want to marry, that is a seed. There is a harvest. It will dictate the kind of marriage you shall have, the kind of course you choose in school. That's a seed you have sown. It will dictate for 3 years, 5 years, the kind of harvest we shall have. And so let us not normalize making bad mistakes or other bad choices, because those choices, they are seeds and they carry a harvest. And so before you make a choice, sit down and analyze and ask yourself authentic question that I'm making this choice. Am I ready for the kind of harvest that comes with this choice? Now, between seed time and harvest, there is time. And that's where the problem is. You cannot plant anything today and reap today. Even in our professional practice, you cannot go to any course one day and the next day you're a professional. You have to spend some time in school, get the theory, get the knowledge, in turn practice until you become experienced. And that is where most people give up. That's why Galatians talks about, don't be weary in doing good, for in the proper time there's a harvest for it. Now, patience is now the fruit of the Spirit that shall help us to continue planting the right seeds. Maybe you are speaking life, you are speaking life, you are speaking life, and you have not seen the things you are speaking. In the fullness of time, it shall come to pass. And so between seed time and harvest, we have time, and our role is to be conscious to know, just like farmers, there are those crops which can take 3 months, there are those crops which can take 2 years, there are those fruit trees which can take 5 years. And so with the fact that you have not seen results immediately, don't assume that you shall not see them. But the fact that you have made a bad choice to disrespect whoever, and assume that you have not seen any consequence, that it will never come to pass. Some decisions that you can take today, they will cost you 10 years from now. There are some seeds you can plant today, but in the fullness of time, they will come to cost you. So just know, there's a function of time which can deceive you, because you can think, I have been speaking negative things, I have not been seeing them happening. Because you can think, I don't pray for people, I don't give, and I still have abundance. In the fullness of time, when the harvest comes, it will be too late. Thoughts are also seeds. That's what Proverbs talks about, as a man thinketh, so he is. So the kind of thought you entertain, the kind of mentality you have, will dictate by default things that we shall attract. We are not talking about the law of attraction. We're talking about God understand. We are defined by how we think about ourselves. As a man thinketh, you cannot think about yourself. You cannot have a low self-worth and then expect to do exploit. You cannot have a wrong identity about yourself and expect to manifest anything. And so God cannot be mocked. He has made us to understand that in Galatians, that whatever we sow, that's what we shall reap. You know, sometimes we go to God in prayer, but we forget that God is the same God who has said, Seedtime and harvest shall not cease. And so you have planted bad kind of seeds and you are praying heavily. What do you want God to do? Take this case scenario. You have a land, say 1 acre, and you have just planted a quarter of it. And you're busy praying as someone who's expecting to reap a harvest as if you have planted the entire an acre of that land. You cannot get the same harvest. And even in that context, prayer cannot help you. The only thing that prayer can help in that context is to make you know that you planted few seeds or did not do your farming the right way. And so if you don't like the kind of harvest that is happening in your life, maybe it's time for you to audit the kind of seeds that you've been sowing, audit the kind of words you've been speaking, audit the kind of actions you've been doing towards yourself and other people, audit the kind of intercession, giving, and knowledge that you've been acquiring, because these are the things that are influencing the harvest that you are having. And so what you see in your life is just a function of, this is the harvest. This is something that you saw sometimes back. It is just catching up with you. So if you don't like the harvest, change the seeds. Don't go to God in prayer. You cannot twist God. You cannot manipulate God, because God will tell you, I have said, I cannot be mocked. What you sow, that's what you shall reap. If you sow dishonor, you shall reap dishonor. If you sow honor to people, that's what you shall reap. If you sow in abundance, you shall reap bountifully. And so even if you fast for 50 days and you are not a giver, you are not a worker, because God has said, He shall bless the work of our hands, there is nothing God shall do, because God is the one who has put the principle of seed time and harvest. As far as Genesis, as back then to the book of Genesis, God did put this law intentionally. Therefore, be conscious of the kind of seed that you are sowing. If you don't like your harvest, you change the seed. If you don't know that that life is about seed time and harvest, take time to reflect and audit every aspect of your life. You are either on a harvest mode, or you are either sowing seeds. You are either planting the right seeds, or you are either planting the wrong seed. But having said that, the devil is also competing to plant wrong seeds with us. Jesus gave a story of how a farmer went and sowed good kind of seed. But at night, when men were sleeping, the devil also came and planted the wrong kind of seeds. And then the farmer was surprised, I only planted wheat, how come I'm seeing weeds? Then Jesus told him, it is an enemy who did this. And so if you are not conscious of the fact that life is about seed time and harvest, you shall be allowing the devil to use you to speak negative words. So you're speaking life, you are so positive about life, the next minute you're also speaking death. You are canceling the very thing that you're speaking. One time you are so generous, another time you are not generous. One time you are busy making the right choices, another time you are so complacent. Therefore, don't allow the devil to manipulate, because he understands that principle. And it also, he shall come when men are sleeping, when you are slothful, when you are not alert, and he shall mislead you to plant the wrong kind of seeds. And therefore, don't plant the wrong kind of seed, because that is what you shall harvest. Just invest in planting the right kind of seed, and don't work by presumption. Don't be deceived that you can plant the right kind of seeds and you are busy expecting a harvest. That is not a wisdom from above. The wisdom from above is, because you know your action has a consequence, and because you know your words have a harvest, your thoughts have a harvest. In giving, there's a harvest. In prayer, there's a harvest. As you think, so you become. You now invest in the right kind of seeds, and then God shall not be mocked. That is what you shall harvest. And actually, if you are so conscious of the fact that you have planted the right kind of seed, and then you see a contrary harvest, you can even go to God in prayer, because now you have an understanding, and tell God, you cannot be mocked. This kind of harvest I have never planted. I cannot be dishonored, because Father, I don't dishonor people. So you pray and you rebuke. I cannot be in lack, because Father, I refresh other people. And you have said you cannot be mocked. You understand? So people cannot bring disgrace to your life. Why? Because you don't bring disgrace to other people's life. So when you are praying, you're telling God, you cannot be mocked. This kind of harvest, I have never planted this kind of seed. And so you reject. But even if you have planted the right kind of seeds, and then you have a harvest, the best you can do is to confess and repent, and to begin planting the right kind of seeds, and I wait for the harvest that come with that kind of seed. And that's my encouragement for us this morning. I believe it has shed some light on our understanding of life in regard to seed and harvest. You can just write to us for your comment and feedback. I shall meet you again as we continue with other sessions. Blessings.